Right guys, welcome back to the channel, and this is my competition entry for DiceMiniaturePaintGuy's basing video showcase. Now obviously I've got a lot of armies, so I've picked a few models from each force to show you what I do for each of my basing. So let's have a closer look at each one in turn. So for my Khorne Demonkin, I actually use resin bases that are supplied by Demonscapes. These ones, I really like the look of them. There's loads of skulls all over them, and I've splattered blood up and down, as you can tell. The bases come obviously with the skulls already on them, and I basically sprayed them grey, dry brushed them up, painted the skulls, and then splattered blood everywhere. Terry from Demonscapes is very competitive with prices, and the bases are top quality indeed. He does them in a whole host of sizes, including obviously this. I'm not sure of the exact size of this one, but the oval shaped one for the juggernauts. And as you can see, there's boatloads of skulls. I love the detailing on the concrete-y type bit as well. So yeah, I basically buy these ones ready made, and I think they look absolutely fantastic. Let's take a look at the next force. So these are the 30k Mechanicum that I've got, and again these bases are supplied by Terry from Demonscapes. These are the apocalyptic bases, I believe, and as you can see there's like cogs with rivets on and stones, and I went for a very brown kind of blasted fallout type base with these, and there's cogs all over the place. You've got some cobblestones and things like that as well, and some rocks here and there. So basically I painted them up brown, painted all the cogs up very rustily, very grey rocks, and I just added a few little tufts of grass. If you're interested in seeing how I painted these ones up, there's a tutorial up for this Castellax for you to have a look at as well if you check out the rest of the channel. But I think the brown tufts of grass just help give it that fallout zone kind of effect. Right, let's have a look at the next army. Right, so the next force is the Necrons, and for the Necrons I wanted a very kind of dry, desolate kind of base, so I've gone for a very deserty themed type base. I basically paint the bases red, wash them with sepia, and then dry brush them with bleached bone. For some reason the bone really kind of works on the red, and then I've gone for a very pale green tufts of grass, so it looks as though there's just a little bit of moisture in the ground, but I wanted it, you know, a desolate tomb world, and as you can see there I've highlighted it with the bone and just a couple of little tufts of grass on there, and all of my bases for my Necrons are done like that, and then I just paint the rim with black. So everything for my Necrons is painted very flat. There's not much kind of rockiness to it. This is about the rockiest that any of my bases get. I just use sharp sand with PVA glue and then paint them up. Right, so this is the Blood Angel force. For my basic Marines, I basically cover the base with green flock first, and then I use some static grass, just green, and sometimes add a little bit of lichen like what I have done here with Mephiston. If we take a closer look at the Marine, there's just a single rock on there and some flock, and then there's a tiny bit of static grass. You can't quite see it on the camera because it all kind of blends in, but up close it does look like a rather nice mix of the flock and the static grass on there, and the rock just kind of want like a natural kind of grass world theme that I was kind of going for. With Mephiston, few bigger rocks there, and obviously have him standing on the rocks, and we've got a couple of bits of lichen on there along with the static grass here as well. For the larger bases though, as you can see, I pretty much went to town with the Storm Raven base. So we've got all the grass and the lichen and everything right around the side, small pile of rocks here with some moss growing in it. But if we turn the base around to the other side, you can see here I've used one of the old ruins out the 3rd edition box with some rubble around the edges, and then I've used a fake house plant. If you check out my forest tutorial, you can see where I'm getting this from. Basically chopped up a fake plant from B&M and glued that in there as well, and I think it just helps the whole base really pop and stand out. And obviously adding the moss and things along the side there, and I just think some bases like that are very, very thematic. So yeah, that's the Blood Angels. Right, so these are the Harlequins that you've probably seen on the channel. With these I wanted a very kind of player type theme, as that's what they're called, and I thought what better way than dice, poker chips, cards, things along those lines. So basically I've mounted all of my troops on 32mm bases, and as you can see I've basically cut some dice in half and glued them all in different positions so that the troops can essentially be seen jumping over them. Obviously painted the dice up in different colours and then spotted them. But for these I went for a very, excuse me, a sandy theme, with just a little bit of static grass on there just to kind of pick out the details as well. So there you go, there's a yellow dice on there as well. And as I said, I wanted a couple of different themes, so I've also gone for a poker chip. So I've broken this one apart and covered it in sand and stuff. And again, just a little bit of static grass in between the gaps and everything. So that's the poker chip one. I haven't painted one up yet, but I've got this one for another Skyweaver, and I've put a Joker card on there as well as some dice and a poker chip. So with that one, I have got some card themed ones for the 32mm bases as well as some poker chip ones. Again, I wanted a very kind of thematic player type theme with them. So basically each of the three troops would have a dice base, a card base, or a poker chip base, depending on which Twilight and Light troop they belong to. So that is the Harlequins. So with the Skitarii and the Cult Mech, I wanted a little bit different. I still kind of wanted the brown urban-y type feel, but I wanted it as though it was an old ruined city, lots of things to clamber over. So what I did is I had quite a bit of the Cities of Death bits and pieces left over, so I basically hacked them up and just stuck them on a base with a few rocks and lots of sharp sand. So again, I've still painted them up brown with the static grass on there, but all the rocks and the ruins and stuff I've painted up grey. So if we look at this guy, I quite like the pose because he's kind of jumping over the ruins. Very much gives that feel of the Dune Strider rule, kind of clambering over everything as they go. And again, with this infiltrator as well, clambering over 2 bits of broken wall there as well. So that's kind of the theme I was going for, but again, still with the rubble, might be some broken marble or anything. The Vanguard, obviously not going to be jumping over as much rubble, so each of the Vanguard and the Rangers have a little bit of a rock on their base, but nothing to represent that, the Dune Strider rule or anything on there. The Breaches and the Destroyers, as well as the Castellans, I've done a bit more on there because they obviously tracked creatures as such. I want to represent them kind of trundling over the rubble, not really minding what is in their way at all. So I went for a very urban theme with that, as though they were, maybe exploring a ruined manufactorum or something. Right, so this is the Eldar. I went for more of kind of a rubbly type base with these, so basically just black with grey and white dry brush, but with then lots of lush green moss and grass growing up in areas as well. That can be seen quite a bit on the Farseer base here. So I've got obviously the moss growing and the static grass on there as well, but that's literally sprayed black, dry brush grey, dry brush white. If you're interested in seeing how that's done, you can check out my basing tutorial on the channel as well under the tutorials playlist. So that is pretty much what I do for most of the bases with the Eldar, apart from sometimes I add a little bit of slate here and there. Sometimes, like with the Swooping Hawks, I add more moss than what I would with the others. The Fire Dragons, for example, I'll get it to focus, all have a little bit of slate on the base, kind of clambering across the slate. So I wanted a very kind of mountainous, kind of rocky area for their terrain. And then this is the Crimson Hunter base. Now obviously the Crimson Hunter specialises in hunting down flyers, so I had a spare Storm Raven tail from the Fire Raptor kit, so basically kept the base in the same sense, so very urbany. I used cork and sharp sand for this, still put the moss on there as well, but put the destroyed Storm Raven tail, and of course I had to paint it up in Blood Angel colours. I've then even added this smoke plume to represent that it's been shot down, and around the back here we've got one of the legs and a little bit of red and white lichen on there, again just trying to represent, you know, kind of mountainous crags where the Eldar would perhaps be fighting. So this is the Dark Eldar bases. Again, I actually did these ones before I did the Eldar ones, so I want to represent Commorragh by being very dark, not much grown there, maybe some alien plant life type of thing. So again, I just used the black with the grey and the white dry brush to highlight the bases up, but then I added, so for like this guy I've used red lichen on the base. For this guy I've used some white, and like I said, the red and the white just there to kind of simulate the alien plant life that might be in Commorragh. And there we've got some more white lichen, but with a tiny bit of grass growing. So again, just adding a couple of little bits of rocks here and there for more thematic purposes. This is the Talos, and as you can see, I've done a little bit of a destroyed Necron on the base. In fact, let's lift him off there. So there you can see I've got a little bit of static grass, a few rocks, and a destroyed Necron on there as well. I've even added a little bit of blood. All the Coven stuff I tend to add a little bit of blood to, as I just get the impression, you know, they're going to tear stuff apart basically. So yeah, again, just sharp sand, a couple of little rocks, and dry brush them up and add on the extras. For the Razor Wing, this base is actually solid rock. Everything on there is rocks that I picked up out of my dad's allotment, and again I've gone for the red and the white lichen just to simulate kind of alien plant life in Commorragh. Some of my bases actually have these on as well. These are little red, it's described as decorative sand where I got it from, but it's like kind of glass crystals. Some of my bases actually have that on as well. Again, you know, it could be some crystals that's maybe grown in Commorragh. It's an unusual place, you don't really know what's going to be grown there. Right, so these are the bases for my Tyranids. My Tyranids are very sea themed. Each of the models have shells glued on them in various places, so I want to try and make the bases look like they were water and the Tyranids were kind of, you know, trunching out of the ocean type thing. I won't go into details on how I've made them, other than it's decorator's cork, basically being face planted and then pulled off and painted up. If you want to see how it's done, please check out the Tyranid painting tutorial elsewhere on the channel. But basically, I want to try and create a kind of wave effect. As you can see there's a few kind of peaks coming up, and obviously the colours and the highlights on there as well. It's actually being glossed with spray gloss as well to represent kind of the wetness of the water. So again, you can see there, you know, the waves and the peaks. It's not flat at all. Now the way I've painted it hopefully makes it look like the waves are breaking a little bit as well. So yeah, please check out the Tyranid painting tutorial to see how those are done. It does take a long time to do them, but the entire army, including over 100 gaunts, is done like that. And last but by no means least, my Imperial Knight base. This one was my first Imperial Knight that I actually got, and I wanted it to look absolutely epic. So I basically used the other piece of the runes that I had. The other bit was on the Fire Raptor base or the Storm Raven base, and I cut this one at an angle. I wanted it to kind of be sunken into the ground, and obviously the knight kind of stepping over it and starting to crush it with the beams and everything coming out of here. There's a couple of pieces of panelling, maybe that's fallen, and then loads of rocks on there as well. If you've seen a few older battle reports, you'll know that Sean owns a Revenant Titan, and I jokingly said to him when he was first considering it that if he bought one, I would paint it, bearing in mind he plays Iandon and yellow is horrible to paint. So what did he do? He bought it. So obviously I obliged and painted it up, and in exchange he gave me the spare head. So obviously, of course, I had to paint the head up in the Craft World colour of my Craft World Alpenzar, didn't I? So I wanted, like I said, wanted this base to look very, very imposing and thematic and basically boom, in your face. And I've just added a couple of little tufts of grass around the edges there as well. But yeah, that's it for all of the bases for the 11 different armies I think I've got. I hope you've enjoyed watching them. If you have any questions about how I've made them, please drop me a message on Facebook. Please check out Terry from Demonscapes for the resin bases, and please check out Dice Painting Miniature Guy in his channel as well. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.